This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. Yo, welcome to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. If it's your first time tuning in, my name is Sal or Salvador, and on this show, I talk about how to raise money successfully with crowdfunding, how to get funding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I bring on guests who have been here and done it. They have successfully raised money, and they walk you through exactly what they did, the steps that they took to do that. So on this show, this is another example of a just skyrocketed campaign, of a incredible crowdfunding success story. This is kind of a story where I think many of us see these types of projects and we wonder, how the heck did they raise so much money? This is for Arsenal, the intelligent camera assistant. To sort of tease it, unlock the potential of your DSLR or mirrorless camera and capture amazing images in any conditions. So you can use this device to be able to do that. Ryan launched this project on Kickstarter with an initial goal of $50,000. And that's a hefty sum. That's a lot to ask for online for anyone. I think anyone who raises 50 grand on Kickstarter is going to see that as a success. But I also know that he was looking for a little bit more. He was looking to exceed that initial fundraising goal. One of the principles we talk about a lot, particularly in my course, but also just in other work that I put out, my book, etc., is the idea of setting a low goal that's easy to achieve so you can actually exceed your fundraising goal. So he ended up setting a $50,000 goal, and he ended up hitting $2.6 million on Kickstarter from 15,000 backers. Actually, over 15,000 backers. That's a phenomenal, incredible level of crowdfunding success. And you can see that, you can look at that number, and I think it's, number one, very inspirational. I think it could also be intimidating, but it could also be, you can be scratching your head and you're like, how can one person, one guy raise this much money and essentially full steam ahead launch an online business, a seven-figure online business right out of thin air, if you will. So Ryan came on the show and he went into exactly what worked for him. So what did he do pre-launch? What did he do to gear up to the launch of this project? Why did it actually raise so much money? Why did people love the product? And how did he even come up with the idea for this product? He reveals all of that in today's interview. It's a really special interview today too, because I think that with this show, with everything that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to give you the blueprint, if you will, to be successful on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And if you're seeing these major crowdfunding success stories and you're trying to replicate it, you only have one half of the equation. You can look at the campaign page, you can look at the video, but you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So Ryan shares that with you today. Also, if you would like to learn the core principles of crowdfunding, not even just, the things you read on a basic blog post or maybe what you capture in a podcast that goes on for 30 minutes. I mean the deep core principles, the reason why people take action, the reason why campaigns get funded, the reason why there's a mania around certain projects. All of those kinds of secrets I've put into this free email course that I'm going to be sharing with you here today. So if you want to check out this free email course, I go into how to get funding, how to get media attention, how to get traffic, all these different things that you've been wondering, you can check out in this email course. So all you have to do is go to this link, crowdcrux.com/PR. That is crowdcrux.com/PR. You go to that link, you enter your email address, and I'll start sending you some of these free training videos to get you up to speed on how crowdfunding works, why actually people take action, take out their credit card and back campaigns, all this different kind of stuff you can learn. It is learnable, and I've spent a long time actually learning some of these principles. So thank you so much if you decide to do that. And I have one little bit of a teaser here that I want to share with you, and this is kind of an experiment. We're going to see how this goes. We're going to see the kind of response I get or if people check it out. But I'm going to be linking to, in the blog post that accompanies this podcast, a vlog that I did. No, that's not a speech impediment, a vlog, a video log, vlog. I'm sure you know what a vlog is. Like there are a lot of different ones online. Casey Neistat's a very popular vlogger and YouTuber. The idea of a vlog is kind of sharing a bit of your life story and also sharing your day. And in this particular video, I took my Hubsan, which is a drone, out into the wild, and I flew it and ended up crashing the thing. Actually ended up crashing my drone. So I shared that footage, everything like that. It's really funny, I think, but it's also kind of scary and also kind of just cool. You're seeing a different side of me, if you will. When I'm not just working and talking about crowdfunding, you're getting to see another side of me and one of the hobbies that I have, which is flying my drone all around and taking cool video footage. So if you want to check that out, I will include that link in the description of this podcast. But without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Ryan, welcome to the podcast. I have been actually really looking forward to this interview for a while. I wrote a very comprehensive blog post on the landing page that you actually put together for Arsenal, saying how, all the different elements you included and the way that you sort of built your email list that way. And then you launched your campaign and did $2.6 million. That is crazy, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Did you actually expect to raise that amount of money on Kickstarter?
I definitely didn't expect it to go that far. You always, it's funny. I've done the entrepreneurial thing for a while, and you always kind of keep in mind that 9 out of 10 startups fail, and I've done enough to see those numbers come true. So it's kind of I've had some successes in the past, and I've had a lot of failures. So it's interesting to see. As you're going through this, Arsenal was one of those projects where I had a really good feeling about it, but I'm sort of a pragmatic person, so having kind of the numbers in my head, I wasn't really sure what to expect. The more I talked to people, the more kind of I think the thing that was different about this project that I'd seen with my past successes was people were kind of that I'd showed the product to kind of kept coming back to me. And it wasn't just, yeah, that looks cool, I'd buy it, them saying that. It was them, kind of coming back and asking again a week later, a month later, 6 months later. And so I did have a good feeling going into it, but, like I said, you never really know. And I definitely didn't expect it to do as well as it did.
In terms of having that feeling then, so part of it was the feedback you were getting directly from people, I guess, when you were telling them the idea, or how else were you getting that feeling of like, okay, I feel like this could actually be a really good project?
Yeah, so I've actually worked on this I worked on Arsenal for about 2 years full time before we did the Kickstarter. So I had at various stages, prototypes that I could show people, and then towards the end I had an almost fully working product that I can show people. So it was, some of that was feedback from that. Some of that was, talking to photographers and kind of, discussing kind of the limitations of current cameras and things like that. So
Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what Arsenal is, just succinctly, if they haven't had a chance yet to check out the Kickstarter? Can you just describe it a bit?
Sure. So Arsenal tries to solve a few problems, but kind of the overarching one is basically to help people who use DSLR or mirrorless cameras take better photos. So we do that a couple different ways. The main way is we have a machine learning artificial intelligence model that helps suggest settings based on the shots you're taking. And it's interesting because this is actually something that most of the cameras don't do right now. They will look at the scene and help set exposure, but they don't actually sort of pick all the settings for you. And so that's something that we're doing. And that's basically trained off of all these professional quality photos. So we can kind of identify similar scenes and then learn from those settings. And then based on sort of the constraints on your current scene, so how much light you have, how much movement you have, things like that, we can adjust those settings and help take better shots. So that's kind of part one of how Arsenal helps you get better photos. Part two is with the hardware, we're able to take multiple shots in a row and then merge those in different ways to improve the photo. And I should say too, Arsenal is actually it's a combination of a piece of hardware that sits on top of your camera and connects to the camera over USB, and then there's a mobile app that you kind of control it from.
I found that to be actually really cool. Like the mobile app can actually control the settings on the camera and such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we use all the cameras that we support have it's basically an API over USB that a lot of people use for tethering. So studio photographers will connect their camera to the computer over USB and shoot that way. And so we've basically created this hardware component that it's fairly small. It's about the size of a credit card, but thicker, and then sits on top of the camera in the hot shoe mount, and then you connect to it wirelessly. So
very cool, very cool. So you had this idea for the product. You've been working on it for a while now. In terms of the actual launch on Kickstarter, I want to get into what exactly were you doing leading up to the launch of this project? Because you had a very strong first day.
Yeah. So we, we did build our email list. I don't think we had the biggest email list out there. I think we had kind of the right people on the list, so to speak. I've read a lot of things where people will get, and it's actually funny because I think it was a couple days before the launch, I'd read something about a campaign that did, I think, 500,000 had I want to say 40,000 people on their email list or something, and that's way more than we had. So I kind of panicked and was like, "Oh boy, we're in trouble." But yeah, I think we had the right people, and then I think the day we launched, we put out our Kickstarter video on Facebook and a couple places. And that actually got some viral traffic. So I think that was kind of the big thing that did well for us was the first day, the first 3 or 4 days that the Kickstarter video actually went, just got a ton of shares on Facebook and really kind of went around that way.
It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful video. It's beautiful photos all around. It's just a delight to actually look at it. It's crazy.
Thanks. Yeah, that was actually, one of the challenges I think putting the video together was Arsenal's a fairly technical product. Sort of the way we get better photos is sort of a, fairly involved technical process. And so it was interesting to try and kind of come up with a video that conveyed, had the visuals to show you what was happening, but we really couldn't dive into the technical details just because most people don't have a background in machine learning, and it's not that it's interesting to me, but
not enough nerds out there.
Yeah. So it was kind of this challenge of how we construct the video to kind of show how it gets the results it does, and then kind of explain the product. And then I think we had the challenge too that Arsenal sort of there's a lot to it, but it's sort of the reason it's like that is because the kind of the sum of the parts is, or whatever that expression is, the sum of the parts is greater than
the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like when you put all these things together, you end up, getting way better photos than if you just one of them or another. So
totally. So the video then went a little bit viral. You definitely had just an amazing, I think, product market fit. It solves an actual problem. You've gotten good feedback on it. You had the email list. Was that the landing page? Was there any other ways you used to build the email list?
No, just through the landing page. So we had done, it was it was mostly organic. We'd done some Facebook ads a little bit, not a ton beforehand. And then we actually did a little bit of advertising the first couple days, but it was really just kind of testing the waters. And then we kind of ramped that up at the end.
Very cool. It sounds like it's a lot organic then, but that's insane to me. You went from having a $50,000 goal to then very quickly hitting that goal and just sort of skyrocketing towards the end. Like there's a lot that picked up towards the end of the campaign, it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was, some of that was ads, but we did, the majority, more than, 2/3 was organic. So, probably even more than that. I haven't looked at it in a while, but, a lot of our traffic came from Kickstarter itself. Like it's funny. I didn't have a ton of communication with Kickstarter during the campaign. I kind of expected as we were going that they'd be a little more involved, but they were helpful when I needed them. But it was interesting. I think they said we had a really good conversion rate. So I think that, they were kind of doing their own calculations as to they've kind of got their magic ranking stuff. And I think some of that, they look at how well campaigns convert and they send traffic based on that. And so I think, we're fortunate in that the photography space is, a pretty hot space on Kickstarter. And it's, this was a product I think that resonated with a lot of people. And so I think that kind of helped. And then it's almost like the better you do conversion wise, the better you do overall, because you're going to get sort of more free traffic from Kickstarter because they want, those conversions because they're taking a cut. And
yeah, you're also going to make a lot of, in terms of if you're sending traffic and it has a good conversion rate, you're like basically it's the most efficient funnel, if you will. It's the most efficient system you've set up. So I can totally see that. With this campaign, so you're starting to see like notifications, starting to see backers, all this kind of stuff. What did it feel like when you got to say like the middle of the project? Walk me through like your mindset here. You still have a good amount of time to go. What did it feel like hitting that middle point? You've already raised a bunch of money.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it's funny. I'm sure you've had other people say this, but the campaign is just, you're just working nonstop, really. And it's funny because from the outside, it doesn't seem like it would be such a busy time, but it's sort of that, like we're trying to ramp up, customer support, and, you're just getting inundated with questions and things like that. And then we're trying to do, about the halfway point is where I really started, I could see the trajectory, and at that point I'd kind of passed, like once we hit about 1.5 million, that was sort of topping out what I thought we could do previously, and so I sort of started there were a couple of people that I'd planned to hire to kind of get us to the production finish line, and started sort of expanding that scope as I realized that we could grow faster and we could kind of get a jump start on it. So a lot of that was kind of going on during the campaign. There's still, it's interesting too, because we did a fairly short campaign. We did 30 days. And, so it was, a lot of the things we really wanted to make sure that we maximize that, so
it almost seems like too, had you done something like 45 or 60 days, it looks like you would have even continued to raise money just based on how it was going.
Yeah. And I honestly this is my first Kickstarter. So I'd kind of read some stuff, and Kickstarter kind of suggested 30, and a couple other people that I, value their opinion had said 30. So I think, to a certain extent, the common wisdom I think is that, and you would have a much better sense of this than me, but I think the common wisdom is that longer campaigns kind of tend to raise close to the same amount, but they stretch it out a little farther. Now, I think honestly, for some of the bigger campaigns, it might make sense to do some of these longer ones. I do wish we'd done a little bit longer, but I'm not complaining.
I think I think the difficulty too is just that when you have a longer campaign, you also have to maintain that momentum for a long time, and it just kind of, there's less time. When you have a shorter duration, it's easy to stress that urgency or to continue to celebrate and draw people in, and it's hard to do that when you have like a 60-day campaign to keep at it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, you get people who...
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today.
You know, they come at the beginning and then they think, okay, I'll check it at the end, and they forget about it, right? So I think I honestly don't have a good sense of kind of which is better, a shorter or longer campaign. You know, the only thing I would say towards the shorter campaign is if you're lucky to kind of be where we were, where you're number one or number two on the popular section. We got a lot of traffic from that through Kickstarter as well, and I think the benefit to that is of a shorter campaign is I believe that's computed based off the last day's how much you fundraised for the previous day. So, you know, if you did a longer campaign, you're going to make less each day, which means that you might be farther down the popular ranking, right?
Yeah,
so,
truth. Where did you learn? Like, it seems like you've done a little bit of your homework here before launching. Where did you go to learn about all this kind of stuff?
So a lot of this was actually learned during the campaign a little bit. And then I have a few friends who have launched some, not huge Kickstarter campaign. Well, I guess one was a, $350,000 campaign on Kickstarter. And then another friend who it wasn't through Kickstarter, but it was a separate crowdfunding. They actually did like their own site. That did like $1 million. So I got a little bit of advice from them. You know, it's interesting because the one that did the Kickstarter campaign was a while ago, and you know, kind of first thing he said was like, "Well, we did that in, I forget, 3 or 4 years ago," and he's kind of like, "I think all my advice is irrelevant now." So I don't know. Like some of it, I think actually was pretty helpful, but so that was kind of one of the places I went, and then you know, there was a lot of it. A lot of it we just kind of learned along the way. You know, I did Google and kind of try to read up as much as I could, but it's hard. There's kind of, you know, there's some conflicting advice, and I think, you know, what works for one campaign may not work for another one, you know?
That's really true. That's very well said. Also, that just because something worked very well for you doesn't mean it might for other people who are listening to this show. But I do think that some of the strategies you're sharing, whether it's putting together a video that, you know, captivates you and pulls out those emotions to maybe improve the chance you go viral. Like there are some strategies definitely, I think, that form a bedrock there, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the other projects you've launched, so you mentioned you've done some other entrepreneurial projects. Like where does this factor in? Are these other projects you've done in the photography realm? Like, can you give us an idea of that?
Yeah. So I've been doing, you know, I've been launching stuff for a while now. I had some success, it was almost a decade ago, doing social gaming when that was popular. So we were fortunate to kind of be early in on that. And so that was a good learning experience, and kind of, you know, I think I brought some stuff on that, and kind of, you know, marketing side of things from that. And then I've launched a couple other projects. The only other one I was founder on was a machine learning startup where we were doing some natural language processing analysis stuff.
Wow, that's cool.
A couple years ago. So, so I've been fortunate to be kind of, have some projects in the machine learning space. It's just such an interesting field right now. And then,
is this all then in terms of like the coding, the technology, the hardware? Did you set this all up yourself, or do you have a partner that's like helping with certain aspects of this? Like what role are you playing?
Yeah, so now, before the Kickstarter, it was myself, and then I brought on an electrical engineer to do, all the board design and sourcing and things like that. And then we had, before the campaign, we also brought on a sort of part-time customer support person, and then a sort of part-time marketing person to help us with some of that stuff. So I ended up doing, most of the site and the video and the all the coding on the device and on the mobile apps, all the machine learning stuff.
That's really impressive. Wow.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I kind of consider I've been programming since I was a kid, so that that helps.
Yeah.
And then been doing machine learning for about a decade now. So,
would you say that I know that you're, obviously your trade, I guess, or what you do for a living is software development, but in terms of the photography, so this is kind of like a passion project that you now have turned into your full-time business kind of deal.
Yeah. And I'm not. It's interesting. I think I'm a very technical person, so for me, photography is a little bit of like a technical exercise. And it was interesting when I talked to people, because a lot of people don't who are sort of less technical kind of hate that part of it,
Yeah.
And so it was interesting because Arsenal kind of came about because of a couple of reasons, but kind of one of the main ones was seeing that like struggle of, I am not artsy at all. So for me, the hardest part of photography
you could have fooled me.
Well, the hardest part for me is composition. Like it's such a struggle for me. My brain just doesn't work that way. But a lot, I'm the technical stuff I get, like I can read, a paper on how debayering works. And I get that part of it. And I get like how, photons convert, a sensor converts photons and measures them and things like that stuff's pretty, not easy for me, but that stuff I can do.
You can wrap your head around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think it's interesting because most photographers, I feel like, aren't that way. Like they tend to be more on the artistic side. And so you'll see a lot of photographers kind of, the limiting factor for a lot of them, especially people getting into it, is really the technical side of it. Like they don't either have the time or sort of the background knowledge to kind of.
It's frustrating too.
Yeah, it is. And it's especially now, some of the machine learning stuff that we're doing is done on your cell phone. So people come from cell phones thinking, okay, yeah, I get good photos
Point
on
and
my
shoot.
phone.
Yeah, just really easy.
If I spend 5 times as much, I should get a 5 times better photo, and you'll get a photo that's half as good.
That's so true. That is so true.
Aren't any good. So
I have a EOS 70D camera, so I started to get more into YouTube this past year. Been learning about like those things like ISO and aperture and like all of these different terms that I had no idea what they did before, and like lighting and such.
Yeah,
and it can be just very frustrating because you just want to honestly turn the thing on and like either record a video or take a photo, and you just want it to look nice. But
yeah, it's a serious commitment to really understand the technical side of photography. Like you're looking at, years of reading and like practicing, and it's, the technology's there now that we can kind of, move that to machine learning, and, you can enjoy it more, the fun part of photography,
Well, that's what I love about this product is that you sort of have discovered something that within yourself is a strength. Being able to learn these technical things, being able to put all that together, that's your strength. But then you recognize that not everyone is the same as you are. So you're sort of helping people by creating this product with something that you're good at, but they're not good at. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. And to a certain extent, there's still kind of the scratching your own itch, because in my head, I'm just like, well, I can save time if I'm not out there spending some of the techniques that I'll use, they take 20 minutes to get a photo, when you're stacking multiple photos and, moving the focus ring every time and things like that. So it, kind of started as I'll automate my own stuff to, and then the nice thing when you automate it is you don't make a mistake. One of the biggest things too is I do a lot of night photography where it's really a technical process to do night photography, and you're up late, it's 3 a.m, your brain's not working, and you'd be surprised how often you come back and you just make a simple mistake because you're not at the top of your game.
Yeah, you're not sharp.
And so having an automated process was almost sort of my way of making sure that, if I was going to go out, I was going to get what I wanted to get.
Some of these night photos, I'm looking here at your 500 pics account, like concert near the lake. These are just beautiful. It's incredible you're able to capture these.
Yeah, thanks. I live in Montana, so that helps.
Yeah, that is true. I want to ask you though. So in terms of the entrepreneurial endeavor, I think you've definitely surprised me in that, you saying you're not like an artsy person, but you love photography and you love the technical side. In terms of entrepreneurship, I think there are a lot of software developers out there who don't really venture into launching their own business. And the pay is very good also as a software developer, but why is it that you then wanted to create your own business from scratch?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I've always kind of enjoyed, I enjoy the process of creating a product. I think, my parents are business owners, and I kind of grew up, I never grew up seeing a 9 to 5, you know what I mean? And so for me, kind of the idea of just like punching a clock for a job seems kind of boring, I guess. So I think, I've always enjoyed kind of trying to bring a product to life and trying to, have it grow. I'd be lying if I said, I wasn't trying to make money off this product, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
That's obviously part of it too, is like, if you can always go work for Google or Apple or something, but you're only going to get so far. And I'm not like a corporate ladder kind of guy, so.
Yeah.
But I think really that's a small part of it. Like, it's really, I like talking to people, and I like seeing sort of the responses when you solve these problems elegantly for people, and especially on the photography side, like it's great to see, the stuff people take with it. It's like, oh, this photo probably wouldn't have gotten captured if, the right technical process wasn't used,
One of the added side benefits too is now you have a list of 15,000 plus people who are also into photography. That's pretty cool too, because you guys can share photos, they can send in photos they've taken, and that's also just going forward launching new products. That's 15,000 people that have bought your previous product.
Yeah, it's been neat. And it's interesting because I feel like we're already starting to get like a little bit of a community, even just like around the Kickstarter comments and stuff. I'm sort of starting to see who the kind of the leaders will be, and who it's interesting when you have a product that people really are excited about. They're very willing to kind of help you. Like we get 1 million requests for beta testers. And I think, part of that is like they want it early, but a lot of people are like genuinely willing to like help us work through issues. Like, beta testing is not as fun as it sounds, and so I think, it's really great that, we've got so many people who are kind of willing to help out on that side of it. So,
in terms of then your vision for the future, I think I'm sort of seeing a snapshot of you where you've just, completed the Kickstarter project, but this looks like it's a much bigger company that you have in mind. I can see just at least a lot of different supplementary products that would come out of this. So what's sort of your vision here for the company? Are you trying to get more into the photography space? You're going to be launching other types of projects in the future. Could you let us know about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I can't say like our long-term plan. I think there is a long-term play here, but I think in the intermediate, I think there's a version of Arsenal for video that I'd like to do at some point. It's funny, I kind of got into video because of this project, and, I realized it's got kind of the same problems photography has. And so I think that there's, to do a video version of Arsenal would require some different hardware and probably quite a different price point because of the hardware. But, I feel like there's a pretty big market for people doing video, kind of like you said earlier, between vloggers and
YouTubers. Yeah.
like there's a lot of people who kind of, do the kind of Casey Neistat thing where you're creating, a mixed content where it's, it's vlogs, but it's also, sort of the adventure videography side of things. So I think that would be a good market for kind of an Arsenal video version. I think we've actually got we've got a pretty long kind of feature list that we can implement without sort of, it's interesting because every time you add a feature, you're adding complexity to your product. And
very true.
It's kind of like a crossover point where you're losing benefit adding too many features, right? But I think we've got a lot of our features are sort of more in the machine learning side of it, or in, kind of, I don't know, in some of the automatic stuff. So I think
there's a lot to do in the future. You also have to tackle.
I think we're going to be pushing a lot of firmware updates. I think in a couple years, I can't say what our time frame will be, but there probably will be an Arsenal 2 at some point, just because hardware gets better and things will get faster, and
Yeah, of course.
It'll make
The last question I had for you here was, I've noticed you've gotten into a bunch of media publications like Product Hunt, Digital Trends, The Verge, a bunch of Uncrate, Geeky Gadgets. How did you get into all of these publications when you only had the prototype? Like, did you send out them for bloggers to see? How did you get into these publications? I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount.
Yeah, so what's interesting is we had emailed, we basically, put together a list of journalists that we kind of wanted to try and get in front of, and then we emailed all of them, kind of a month before the campaign, a week before the campaign, and really nobody got back before we launched. And then after we launched, I think we hit maybe 300,000 like day 2 or something. I don't remember the exact numbers, but then we sent out an email that was, kind of, explained where we were. And then everybody kind of started getting back to us. So I think, unfortunately, the kind of time where everyone's going to write about a Kickstarter just because it's a Kickstarter is probably passed. And I guess I heard that was the time at one point. So I think, we honestly had to kind of have that social proof before they would really be interested. I had planned to get review units out to people before we shipped or before we launched the campaign. And we just didn't quite get there. So, we didn't actually have review units ready to go out.
So build social proof in some way in order to get people to pay attention.
I would say if you can get review units out, I'm sure that would have helped. I think I gave some demos to people, on the units that we had over Skype and stuff, so they could see that it worked and everything. And I think that helped, but it wasn't having review units that would be in people's hands would have been helpful. So, there were a lot of places we didn't get into. So,
well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing all of that great information. This is just a killer campaign. I also think it's an awesome, really unique product. Where can people go and check it out now that the campaign is finished?
So you can go to our website. It's witharsenal.com.
Okay.
And then we're still doing some pre-orders if anybody wants to order there. And then, we'll be shipping in February if you order now. So
awesome. My last question for you here is, if you could talk to yourself like just before you launch the project, and you could share either a word of encouragement with yourself, or you could give a final tip, or really just say anything to you right as you're going to launch your next project, what would you say, going back in time?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I think one thing is there's always this like trade-off of making things perfect versus shipping it. And Kickstarter is kind of like, I tend to be this like, a little bit of a perfectionist. So I think, definitely the like, put it out there. It's okay.
At a certain point, launch it.
Yeah. I think, especially for a Kickstarter, it's, that early feedback is helpful. There were a few things, as we were going where, some features people were requesting we didn't expect and things like that. So it's always good to have as much feedback as early as you can, I think. So
yeah, and lean on the side, I guess, of taking action over just keep deliberating and waiting and such.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on the show. Going to have you back if you do another Kickstarter campaign, and also
definitely.
look forward to when this comes out. I might actually get one of these for my camera.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, and thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ryan. And as you've been learning about crowdfunding, as you've been going through these different podcast episodes, and you have a question, you want to interact with some of the other members of this community, you can go to kickstarterforum.org. That is kickstarterforum.org. So I set up this online forum a ways back. I think it was 2013 that I launched it. It's gone on to accumulate over 7,000 members, lots and lots of people who are asking questions, sharing their story, giving feedback on each other's campaigns. You can go there if you want to interact with some other campaign creators and also get some of your questions answered. In addition, I am going to include that link, by the way, the vlog that I did where I essentially crashed my drone into a tree. I was just, I totally didn't calibrate the thing correctly, and I go into the video why it is that I crashed it. But this is probably the second time I've crashed my drone, so it's not a frequent occurrence, but it's also really cool. I think the way I film it, I give you the perspective of the drone and also me, and I include also some story in the vlog, what I was doing that day, all that kind of stuff. So you can see that if you want to get a glimpse of my personal life a little bit, and a little bit, I guess, a different side of me, not just Sal talking about crowdfunding, but also a sense of some of the other hobbies I have, like flying a drone. So if you want to check that out, including a link in the description of the blog post, also include a link in the podcast description, and you can check it out there. But thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I'll see you next time.